Hey, I am Beth Miller and I'm back for another live with my friends Lea and Trey from Stronger Marriages. And this is a live you're not going to want to miss. We are joining forces to answer all your questions about marriage struggles and how to overcome them. So I'm just going to wait for them to join. I was on a second ago. We couldn't find each other, but I think we've got things sorted out now. So what we're going to do is you can pop questions into the chat if you would like. And we also have some pre-submitted questions too that we're going to go through. And they're here. I see them. So I just have to figure out how, you know what, ask to request to join. That's what I'm going to get you to do. So here we go. Review request. And we're going to, 1 second here. They should be popping in.
All right, there we
They're
go.
here. Lea and Trey, we did it. We had a little bit of a tech glitch there where I wasn't showing up. My live wasn't showing up in their feed. So we stopped the live. We're back. And this is a great one. You're not going to want to miss this. So I have Trey and Lea, and they are experts in all things marriages. They've been married themselves for 30 years. They've raised 4 boys, and they've been doing marriage ministry and marriage coaching for 20 years. So they know their stuff. Some of their workshops, Stronger Marriages, Stronger Families, and they've written books. So this is so exciting to be joining with you tonight, joining forces to answer so many questions so we can help some people out.
We're honored to be here. Thank you for inviting us. We feel a little humbled that you would even refer to us as any kind of experts about anything. But we're glad to be here, and we're anxious to visit with some folks and answer some questions. And we're sorry you didn't pop up. It just took us a second. Technical difficulties sometimes.
Oh, it's all good. You know what? Doesn't matter what time. I'm just glad to be here with you. So anyone that's watching right now, pop any of your marriage struggle, marriage questions in the chat. Lea and Trey and I will get to those at some point. I'll take notes. I'll take notes and keep track of the ones that come through. So how should we start this off? I have a couple pre-submitted questions. Do you want me to start with the first one?
Sounds great. We had one that came in today that was excellent as well. You go, and we'll all cover it together.
Sounds good. So the one that came in for me, like most recently, was, okay, so it's from a wife, and she says, my husband has a problem. There's something going on, but he's not sharing it with me. And it's making me feel really not included and feeling really left out and feeling like my mind's spiraling in different places. So what would you suggest if her husband isn't sharing something that's going on? Where can she go with this?
Well, you know, my first thought is you can't force somebody to talk as much as you would like to. And men struggle already with kind of sharing details and sharing things on their hearts, because that's just, sometimes for men, that's just not who we are. But the best thing you can do is to possibly let him know, hey, I am here and I am willing to listen anytime you're up for talking. I would be happy to visit with you about stuff. And it's a pretty common known fact that people talk better when they're in a setting such as a car, where they're not having to look at somebody direct face to face. I don't know. I know that we've read studies about this with teenagers, that if you get your teenager in a car and they're in the seat next to you, for one, they can't go anywhere. They're stuck with you. And two, you're not making eye contact, and you get a whole lot better conversation sometimes. So maybe you need to go to, to Sonic for an ice cream date, and maybe they'll open up and talk a little bit. But while you can't force them, you also can't browbeat them to where they're just, until they're ready to share, you can't force somebody to do that.
I agree, and I love that advice. I often give it to women as well. I work primarily with women whose husbands aren't always active in this participation of trying to really work on marriage struggles. So I will suggest a lot of times too, text messaging can be really powerful.
Yes.
And like you said, that face-to-face, sometimes they even have them talk back-to-back, where they're actually back-to-back. So you're taking away the facial expressions, because so often we read it to our partner's facial expressions that it actually distracts us from the message that's being said.
Yeah, I think that's great. And text messages, we've done that before. There are times when we're either a little frustrated with each other, or there's been times where we haven't been just real comfortable, that we've done the text message thing, because it makes it a little less quite so crazy sometimes.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Okay, let's go on to one of your questions. We'll rapid fire
one of
these.
the ones we got that was fantastic, that sometimes we don't think about, maybe because it's been 33 years ago. But we had a question from a person that said, we're getting married soon. We are both virgins, and we are a little stressed about the honeymoon night, because there's so much stress and so much pressure put on it. They said, we think we've got this, But we would love any tips from you three on here tonight that you have that would help us to maybe feel a little more comfortable with it. And so we've done a little bit of thinking about that, but we just thought, what a great question that is for a honeymooning couple that are just like, I'm a little nervous about the first time or the first night. And so you want to take off on that for a couple of things?
Yeah, I mean, just there's a lot of pressure involved in that. And so we just want to, encourage you to not stress about the pressure and, take your time, communicate. And don't expect fireworks the first time. Honestly, don't expect fireworks. Lubrication. I mean, be prepared. Honestly, we just go into it prepared. And what was the other thing we were talking about? Oh, your wedding day is so stressful as it is. And you can just literally be exhausted, by the time it's over with and you get to wherever you're going. And we've read couples that have said they wish they had just waited until the next day when they weren't so tired and just, kind of agree to say, okay, honeymoon morning, the day after. So that's a thought. If you're exhausted, don't put that much pressure on yourself.
Yeah,
No,
you may not find it all that the first couple of times. It may not be all that fun. It may be like, wow, I expected more. But you have to remember, a lot of times it's as much about connecting with your spouse as it is about the pleasure involved.
Oh, 100%. And I'm someone who works with like your subconscious mind, and we have this belief around your wedding night that it has to be a certain way. But I give everyone permission to, like you said, if you don't have sex till the next day, or even if it could be a week later, like you need to take it at a pace that you feel comfortable with. So I would just really study the belief that you have, that does it have to be done that night? Right. Or can we do something that feels more comfortable so that it's in alignment with who I am and what feels good, doesn't feel forced, doesn't feel uncomfortable, doesn't feel stressful. Because when it's stressful, it can be fun. So, all right, on to our next question. My husband is more quiet and in his shell. So her husband's more quiet and in his shell. Why? Oh, and I'm more loud, and I'm not feeling heard. So my husband is more quiet in his shell. Why am I more loud and I'm not feeling heard? What about you two? Is one of you loud and one of you quiet?
Yes.
Loud.
I am the quiet one.
Yeah, and I'm the loud one. And yeah, Lee's a lot more introverted than I am. And as a man, it may work decent that way. I don't have to feel like I always want to be heard, because that's not communication to me is important, but it's not as important to me as some other things that there are. But definitely, if you've got a very introverted spouse who is very quiet, it is going to be one of those things to where you're going to have to take a while to learn to adapt. What works best for communication? We tease at our workshops that it takes a cup of coffee and about 10 a.m. In the morning before Lee decides if she's going to be a Christian for the day, because she's not a morning person. And so she drinks coffee for my protection. And she gets up, I try to give her a little time. Let's get you coffee drunk before we're going to talk or anything like that. And so sometimes you learn over time when good times are to talk and when times don't work. Lee's learned with me that if we climb in bed at night and she wants to talk, she needs to really let me know, because I'll be asleep in about 30 seconds. If she was wanting to talk about something. And that's just kind of how we work. But basically, this wife needs to do a good job of letting her husband know, hey, when is a good time for us to talk and communicate a little bit so I can tell you some things on my heart, instead of maybe trying to catch him at a time where he's, just walking the door from work or something along those lines.
Yeah. And we stress to couples to find a daily set time. Try to have dinner together every night. Try to go for a walk after dinner. Sit down when you both get home from work for even just 5 minutes. Just know this is our time to just talk and listen for a minute.
Yeah, and a lot of the women I work with, they often feel not heard. They also feel not seen. Like they communicate and they feel like they're talking to a wall. So I love the tips that you brought up. Also, I would again go back into looking at, are you hearing yourself? Like, do you actually, what you're saying, is it something that you believe in? Does it feel like, can you look at your partner and realize, you know what, maybe they are really tired. This isn't about me. Is what I'm saying and them not receiving it, Is it about me? Is it that he doesn't love me, doesn't care about me? Or is it like you just said, he needs to have his coffee? So I think it's really important to see your partner for who they are. Are they really trying to be evil and not hear you? Often not. Often they're there just because there's got their own things going on, whether it's stress in their mind. And so hearing yourself first, like knowing what you're saying and believing it and just communicating and communicating again with such love, even if your partner, it feels like it's falling on deaf ears, because you know what, they're there and they love you. So working through that together, I think, is really great.
That is a great point. Great point. And men, if there's some men listening, if there's some husbands listening, husbands are really bad about thinking that they can multitask at the same time while listening to their wives. We're thinking I can watch the game out of the corner of my eye, or I can look at a laptop, or I can look at my phone and hear what she's saying at the same time. And I still struggle with this, but I'm learning when my wife is talking, shut the lid to the laptop, put the phone down, whatever it is. You can't do both and make your spouse comfortable that you're paying attention if you're got one eye looking at your phone while they're trying to tell you something that's important to them.
Absolutely. All right, on to our next question. Someone did mention they have some of the deepest and best conversations in the car, so I'm glad we brought that one up. Okay, next question. How do you know someone has truly changed after having 2 affairs?
That is really, really tough. And the only way is through action. And of course, we could spend a lot of time talking about affair recovery, which takes a long time. There's nothing quick about recovering from an affair. It takes time. It takes patience. It takes probably more work from the guilty party than it does the innocent party, because what it requires, that guilty party for a while has really got to work hard to jump through some hoops they need to in order to show I'm rebuilding trust. I am trustworthy. And while one time is bad, 2 times is like, boy, if you've been forgiven twice, you're somebody's been very gracious to you, and you better do everything you can to show yourself and prove yourself very, very faithful at communicating where you are, what you're doing, if you're going to be late, having your phone or computer or anything available to them to look at any time that they want to. It's just got to be so transparent and so naked in your marriage to where you're just letting, hey, my life, there's nothing I've got hidden from you at all. But it's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of work, specifically on that guilty party side, to say, hey, I will let you see anywhere in my life. And the thing that we forget sometimes is the guilty person never has a right to say when the innocent person should be getting over this. Yes. And so the guilty party can never come along and go, hey, it's been 2 months. Why are you not over this? You've got no right to say when they should be better, because you've caused this tragedy, and there's going to come a time where they heal, but you got no right into saying when that should be. That sounds rough, but that's just kind of how that works.
No, I agree. I'm 100%. Like, if a wife wants to keep bringing it up, like, here's the thing. If a wife keeps saying, like, I always work with a wife, but it could be husband too. Like, are you talking to someone else again? Are you talking to someone else again? You're like, are you going to stop asking me? They have to come at it with such kindness and compassion, because it's been very traumatic for that other spouse. And one thing I do, I really believe that each person in the marriage has to do some individual work first. Coming together to do marriage counseling can happen, but I think individual work also has to be done too, because there's so much major traumas in there from the lies that a lot of times you're questioning yourself. Like, you're like, I don't even know it's true anymore. For so long, I thought my partner was cheating, but they kept saying, no, there's nothing going on. So you've almost lost your own ability to trust your intuition. So there's some healing that needs to happen there. My biggest thing too is this: asking your intuition, like closing your eyes and saying, like, just say they're not answering the text message, they didn't answer a phone call, or they're showing up late, and your mind just spirals to, are they cheating on me again? I say close your eyes and just ask yourself, do I honestly feel like they are cheating on me right now? And often that first answer will be like, no, I know they're invested in working on this marriage. And going to that moment, in this moment, I don't believe that they're cheating on me. Because so often our mind will spiral to the future, being like, what if they cheat on me a 3rd time or a 4th time? And then your head's not even in the present anymore. You're so far ahead that you're actually sabotaging your own recovery.
Yeah, that is good advice, good wisdom.
Yeah, Lee, do you have anything to add to? Because the next question actually is, how do you rebuild trust in your marriage? So we're kind of on the same topic here. Do you
Right.
want to talk to
I
that, Lee?
saw that question come through. Just as he was talking, I just kept thinking, there's got to be complete openness and transparency. Nothing hidden. Your whole entire life has got to be an open book for your spouse, and you know that's
I have a question. What are your thoughts on checking? Like, if I were to give all I cheated, say I cheated, I gave all my passwords to my husband. Is it like, do you suggest that partners keep checking their spouse's like social media and their phone? Like, where are you at with that? What's your perspective on how often to check, and do you even check?
If it was us, and thankfully we've been very blessed, we've not had this issue. But I think if it was us, and if I was the guilty party, I would want her to check. I would want her to look, to go, he's doing what he's supposed to do. As a guilty party, I would be going, please look at my stuff and know, because I want to rebuild trust. It would not be hey, you can't look at this. Lee and I share our passwords for everything. We actually have a little note in our phones that have all our passwords to everything, and most of it's to just keep up with what it is. And it's not so I can look at her stuff and she can look at my stuff, but we share it because sometimes if I tell Lee, hey, I need you to get on and fix something that I wrote and I had a big typo in it, and she can sign on. But I also want her to know, by sharing all those passwords to all social medias and everything, that anytime she would ever want to get on, she's welcome to. Does she? I actually have no clue. Probably not. But if she did, I wouldn't care, because I don't have anything to hide. That's how it ought to look in marriage, is where you could tell your spouse, here's all my passwords. Here's my phone. I'm going to go get in the shower. If you want to look at it while I'm in the shower, you're welcome to look at anything you want to. But I think that to be able to, if we were in a relationship to where trust had been broken, for me, if I was a guilty party, or if she was a guilty party, to go, I really don't want you looking at my stuff, that's just another red flag that you're still doing something you shouldn't do.
Yeah, I like this. I think it's great when, if one partner were to do that, they completely open it all up to the point where I want you to check it. I think that would actually make the other partner not necessarily as suspicious or want to check it. I often take the standpoint, if you are going to check, what's the emotion like, what emotion is driving that checking? Are you checking because all of a sudden you're in fear or you're in worry? If you're in that state, I don't think that's the best time to check, because then you're in detective mode. You're going to have your nervous system and your heart rate's all going to be like really high. I think it's great to do it from a place of more calm and like a more peaceful place of, you know what, I'm just taking a quick look here. I don't suspect I'm going to find anything, but it makes me feel better if I just take a peek at this moment. But it's not something I need to do out of fear, because so many wives, husbands have been in this detective mode for so long that it's almost a habit that they need to snoop, they need to check. But that doesn't help recovery. That'll actually keep your walls up instead.
And cell phones and social media are a part of our world now, but we have to, there's got to be some rules in marriage on social media and on cell phones. And the more naked we can be with those, and more transparent we can be, the healthier it is for our marriage. When we start hiding things, when I start putting passcodes on my phone to lock my spouse out, those are all signs that I'm probably doing something I shouldn't do. And that all the people that we have counseled with and visited with that have said, hey, my spouse has put a lock on their phone and they said that I can't look at it, 100% of the time we have been right when we've said they're doing something they shouldn't do. We have yet to have a case where, no, he just wanted some privacy. It's always, yeah, they were doing something they weren't supposed to. So yeah, just that vulnerability and that transparency is so healthy in your marriage.
Yeah, that's great. All right, let's go on to the next question. I don't know if Lee, you want to start with this, but my husband doesn't do serious talk through text. So actually, maybe that's more of a Trey question because it's my husband, but my husband doesn't do any serious talk through text. Should we be doing serious talk through text? How do we get our partner to do more serious talk through text?
I think if one is not comfortable with that, then that's okay if they prefer face to face. But like we said earlier, sometimes there's just, when I know I'm not going to be able to get something very serious out without my emotions getting in the way and clouding everything I'm going to say, it just helps me to be able to write it out first. And maybe it doesn't have to be a text message. Maybe I'll just write him a note and say, this is how I'm feeling. this is what we need to sit down and talk about, just as kind of a starting point. And then, the husband he'll just know where the wife's coming from, and then they can sit down and have a face-to-face maybe after that.
Yeah, that's well said. I don't think I have anything to add to that one. How about you, Trey?
No, I don't either. Yeah.
No.
And
Okay.
again, men sometimes struggle with that heart to heart, but be patient. I wasn't always good at that. And in time, that comes a lot more natural when you figure out how important it is to your spouse.
Yeah, you know what? I will add one more thing. How did your spouse grow up is my question too. Looking at how communication was in their household, did they get deep? Maybe we're not even talking about cell phones per se, but do they have that vulnerability, that ability to open up? But sometimes we can, like, again, lovingly see who they are and why they're not necessarily communicating the way you want, because that's the habit. That's how they were brought up. Those were the role models they had, that maybe things didn't go deep. So you almost have to foster that with them, like have those conversations. Maybe ask them, do you want to, are you willing to talk a little bit deeper with me? Can we try this out? If they start to get uncomfortable, like doing that together, that process. So having some empathy and really seeing why, like, is there anything within their childhood that's showing you that?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point.
All right, another question for you. So anyone that's watching, feel free to pop your questions in the chat. This one is, I don't want to lose my fiance. She took some time away from me because I'd lied. I'd lied every time. I got afraid to tell the truth. Oh, this is good. But I've gotten the help and turned my life over to Jesus Christ. So any advice there, how to get her back?
Well, the main thing is all you can do is you can do your part, and she's going to have to make that decision. The fact that you've made changes and you're willing to make changes, she's going to have to see that, but you can't force that on her. Hopefully she's going to notice that you're not the same person that you used to be, but because of some past actions, there is going to be a little bit of wall built up that she's going to have to go, I need to see that. And hopefully she's willing to look at that. And so hopefully she sees in you the fact that you have changed and that you are working to be a better person, and being dishonest in marriage or even before marriage never, ever, ever helps your relationship in any form or fashion.
Yeah. And I'll bring up this little bit of an inner child piece again, but when, again, maybe you used lying as a defense mechanism when you were a child, like you didn't want to get in trouble from your parents. Maybe they're really firm and you learn that habit. Like if I lie a little white lie, then my parents will still love me. They won't get mad at me. So it was a defense mechanism that you used. Often people don't lie to hurt others. They really are just protecting themselves from getting in trouble, from the fear of what might come from losing someone. So lying's not good. It's not kind, but sometimes when we can give them a little bit of forgiveness for that too, because they're in a place of hurt and they need to heal themselves too from maybe some of the stuff that's happened in their past where they've learned that behavior, that lying gets them out, but it actually gets them in more trouble. So, all right. Anything to add to that one?
Just sometimes that takes time. A lot of people, when they have made a mistake like that, whether we back up and talk a little bit about cheating or dishonesty or hiding things, or they've lied like we talked about here, your spouse, you can't all of a sudden in a week go, okay, I've changed. Sometimes it's going to take a while for them they want to see that over a period of time, not hey, it's been a week and I'm doing better. That's awesome, but they're going to need to see that over a longer period of time than a week. And so be patient with that person that is still trying to get more comfortable with the fact that you're making changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, next one. My husband often comes home angry. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. How do I navigate this? Every day I feel like I'm walking on eggshells.
Well, that's very hard, because that's no fun to have any spouse that comes home. And I imagine it's because of work. It's not anything you have done. I imagine that it is because he's had a hard day at work and he's bringing his work home with him, which he should not. But the only way around this, and it's definitely not the time when he walks in the door, but the only way around this is to catch him when he's in a good mood, maybe on a Saturday when he's not been at work, and say, can we sit down and talk about something that's on my heart that we need to talk about? And that's going to get his attention. And then talk about, a lot of times you probably don't notice this, but when you come home, sometimes you come home very, very angry, very upset, you're tired. And I can understand that. You worked hard. It's been a frustrating day. but sometimes I feel like you're taking it out on me. And he may not even notice what he is doing. And it's important for you to, at some point, you can't drop hints, you can't beat around the bush. You're going to have to just sit down and have that conversation. And when he's angry, it's probably not that time. And so try to catch him sometime when he's a little bit more, had a day off, a Sunday afternoon, just sometime where you can say, can we sit down and have a talk about something that I want to visit with you about? Or when is a good time? And make a time where you can just say, yeah, give me about an hour and we'll sit down and visit. And that's a healthy way to do it, so that they know this is something that's important to my spouse.
Amazing advice. Lee, do you have anything to add to that?
Sorry, I'm the extrovert and I'm jumping in here and she needs to be talking.
The only thing I can think of is, when they are having that talk, if the wife can ask him, is there anything I can do to relieve some stress? Is there anything I can do when you first come home from work to make you feel more comfortable, to make you feel less stressed? Just maybe approach that in the conversation too.
That actually made me feel more relaxed, just you saying that, like, what can I do to help you? Because that takes the onus off taking it personally. So often wives, or I'm sure husbands too, when your partner's angry, you take it personally. Like, why are they mad at me? What did I do? Sometimes we take other people's emotions personally, thinking we caused them to feel that way. Not everyone, but those in particular who are empaths, especially those who have been people pleasers a lot of their life. They want people to be happy. They want to take away that pain. So I think it's really important even to feel, what are you feeling with their response, the way they come in? Are you feeling angry? Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling hurt? And feeling that feeling too, so you don't keep stuffing it down. Because if we keep stuffing down our feelings, what we do is eventually we get resentful of others. And when we're so resentful, eventually we just feel rejected. So I think it's so important to process those emotions too, feel them. Like, yeah, I do feel sad when he comes home, and figuring out why. Is it because I'm taking it personally? So I think there's a bit of self-discovery that goes along. It's not okay that they're coming home angry, but what am I doing to myself? Am I stuffing my emotions?
Yeah.
All right.
Good point.
Okay.
Good point.
Okay. Next one. Anyone who has a question, again, pop it in the chat.
We had one you may have missed. It was excellent.
Oh, good.
And I'm just going to say, Lee, you do this one. Couple time with small children. How do you find time alone as a husband and wife when you have little ones in the house?
Yeah,
I missed that one.
That's a great question. When I saw that, I thought, oh, that is so good.
And that is a tough one. Small children just take so much of your time and energy, but you've got to find that couple time. Hopefully you can put kids to bed a little earlier than, small children, you can usually get down 8:30, 8, even before that. And then you can have some one-on-one time then. If they are school age, try to have lunch dates, do things while they're at school. What else?
Screen time. Give them a little screens, like an extra.
Right. It's okay every once in a while.
Yeah. Put on a cartoon and let them have a cartoon.
Sneak off into the bedroom for a minute. Don't feel guilty about that. If that's how you can manage your couple time, that's okay.
If they're little, it's hard to do, but if they're a little older, go to the park, let them play on the equipment, and y'all sit on a park bench and visit for a little while. Just look for time. That may require getting up a little earlier. It may require staying up a little later. But look for some time with small children. It's a tough thing to do, and it's a tough time in marriage to keep a balance of being both parents and married at the same time. But it's essential that you do. So important that you remain husband and wife during small kid time.
I know, because those little kids grow up and then all of a sudden you're left together, right? If you haven't had that connection fostered for all those years, you're kind of like strangers in a house. Another thing I would suggest too is, work on the belief. Is the belief that it has to be fireworks and romance, or can it be scheduled, which seems so unsexy, but I think scheduling is the best way to go when it comes to little kids.
For sure.
We agree.
Yes.
we totally agree with that.
Okay, next one. If anyone has a question, you can put it in the chat. But I was going to ask you guys, can you stay a bit longer, or do you have things to do?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
I'm watching battery life. I've got a little left. We're good for a few
Okay,
more
you
minutes.
let me know when we need to start wrapping up.
Okay.
I'll just keep giving you questions. So this one is, every time we argue, he uses the same words he shouldn't use. And when things go well, I ask him why. He says, I say things I don't mean when I'm angry. So it sounds like she's having the conversation afterwards to kind of reflect upon some of the anger. But it really hurts me that he can't handle it at the time. So in the moment, it sounds like it's very explosive. Those same hurtful words are coming out. but then after there might be they can talk about it, but how do we get rid of that explosive moment?
I think a lot of times that just comes down to the timing. You know, are they picking a good time to talk, or are they just, you know, in the moment they're just letting it all spew? And sometimes you need to step away from the situation. If you're heated, you just need to say, you know what? We need to take a time out. I need to go for a walk. I need to go for a 5-minute drive or whatever, to just kind of get things under control before we just have at it. And that's, you know, recognize that the heart rate's getting up and the blood pressure is getting up and all of that, and listen to those signals that you need to take a step back.
And I think she did a good job at pointing this out to him. And he probably has not realized this, and she's pointed this out at a time when he was calm, and he's gone, yeah, now that you bring it up, I guess I do that. And she may have to bring this up again. He may do this several more times, but the more she's willing to kind of catch and say, hey, you remember when we talked about this? He'll start catching himself doing that and going, oh, I'm not going to say this. I do this every time. So sometimes, as a man, sometimes we have to be reminded multiple times for it to click in our heads of what to or what not to do. At least it does for me. That's kind of how God made me.
Yeah, we're breaking habits a lot of times. We don't, like, our communication habits have to be broken. We've been operating in a certain way of maybe unleashing your anger. That's how you coped for so many years. So number one thing is just recognizing, so he can recognize that the anger is coming out. Now he just has to work on using other methods. So we have neural pathways in our mind, and his is firing anger. And we just have to become aware of that anger and realize, what is it that I need in this situation so I can be more empathetic, so I don't feel like there's a lion attacking me, but it's really my wife. Okay, next question. This is another infidelity one. So my husband has been unfaithful multiple times, and when there is proof in black and white, he still blames me for his actions. Where do we go with this one? Who wants to start? Do you want me to start?
It's so tough. I mean, when you're saying he's been unfaithful multiple times, I almost feel like at some point you just have to draw the line. You just can't put yourself through that multiple times. And we are pro marriage. We want you to do everything you can to fix your marriage and your relationship, but
there is never, ever a reason to cheat in your marriage. You can be unhappy. Your spouse can be a jerk. You may be in a marriage where your needs never get met, but there is never a reason to go, that's a good reason to cheat. And so to blame someone else for cheating, you just can't do that. That's crossing the line in my books. If you cheated, you didn't make a mistake. You did that, and it's on you. And it don't matter how bad your marriage was, that's something you should not have done. You went past the line. And if you're having marriage problems, you go see a marriage counselor. If there's issues in your marriage, you go talk to somebody. But there is not ever a reason to cheat, and specifically multiple times. And again, I'm not picking on him. I'm not picking on this lady for being too gracious, because we've seen people who have recovered from infidelity and have fantastic marriages today. So it can be done. But there's never in my mind, there's never an excuse for somebody going, yeah, that's a good reason to cheat right there. No, never, ever, ever.
Yeah, so many wives that I work with, they carry such guilt too. They're like, did I cause him to cheat? Is it because he's not attracted to me? I'm not pretty. I haven't been trying hard enough. You know what? I've been focused on the kids or my job and not giving him enough attention. And that just feeds into their own insecurities and low confidence. So I agree that there's no reason to blame your spouse, but I'm wondering where his head's at. Is he ready to reconcile and work on the marriage? Because I'm also pro marriage. And often a marriage is more than two people. It's a family. It's a life. It's your home. It's so much more. So I think really reflecting on, is there hope for this marriage? Like, do you think that he's going to get to a place where we can change that behavior? Because maybe he's just in defense mode and there's no excuse. There really isn't. But if you want to work on your marriage, can the two of you do this together if he's willing? Yeah, it's a tricky one. We need to know more details on that one to really dig into it. This one, okay, if you have more questions, just pop it in the chat. We'll get them all in before we lose Lea and Trey to their battery power. But should you stay in a marriage if you're unhappy, but you feel you will be ashamed in God's eyes? So do you stay in a marriage if you're unhappy in fear that you're going to be ashamed in God's eyes?
Well, I think, can I say this?
Mhm.
I think God wants you to be happy, but I don't think God wants you to break his rules in order to be happy. So I want my children to be happy. I have 4 boys. I want them to be happy, but I don't want them to be happy to the extent of not doing what I've asked them to do in order to be happy. So just because you're not happy doesn't always mean that's a great reason for you to divorce your spouse. Does God want you to be happy? Yes. Maybe God wants you to try and maybe do some counseling. And maybe you've done that. Maybe God wants you to try and do something different. But while I do believe that God wants us to be happy, I personally don't think God wants us to be happy if it breaks any of the rules he's given us on marriage, parenting, anything in life. You know, I can say, hey, God wants me to be happy, and robbing a store and having a bunch of money is going to make me happy. That does not make it right. And so we've got to be really, really cautious with this about, you know, the big sell today is, hey, it's about happiness. And if it makes you happy or if it feels good, you should do it. And that's really bad advice.
Absolutely. I think if any part of you feels like you've done everything possible, you've shown up as the best version of yourself, and you're still miserable, like, I think, again, really, we don't want to live a miserable life, but if you've done everything possible in that marriage and you feel like there's nothing else you can do to be happy, then I think it's time that you can start having those conversations. But it's tough, and this kind of feeds into it here. How do I know when I'm ready for divorce? My husband is disrespectful and rude to me, verbal and emotional abuse. I've told him to stop. He makes fun about my Christian faith.
Yeah, those are such hard questions because we don't know the situation, we don't know the folks, and we don't know kind of what's going on in that marriage. And it is frustrating when someone is disrespectful and unkind. You're just going to have to get to a point that any of those decisions are going to have to be decisions that you have to make. Um, you know, we tell people all the time, here's what we would do, but we can't tell you what you would need to do.
Yeah,
And
generally speaking,
so,
right? Just kind of generally, this is some advice. One thing I just want to flag on this, sorry to interrupt you, was emotional abuse. Abuse is abuse, and to me, that's a
yeah,
huge red flag to
yes,
either seek counseling or to look at divorce too.
I,
If you're
I
being
agree
abused, I would,
100%.
that's something to
There's
consider.
no
But I would
place
do
for
that with a
abuse in
therapist.
marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is no place for abuse in marriage. Part of the issue is today, what is considered to be abuse. There's no place for narcissistic people in marriage, and yet today we have, you know, sometimes we have people contact us and just go, hey, I asked my husband to do this or my wife to do this, she said no, she's a narcissist and I shouldn't be married. And I'm like, that's really not what that means. And so while, yes, there is no place for abuse in marriage and there's no place for physical abuse in marriage, being married to somebody who is self-centered and disrespectful, that is terrible, terrible. But that's such a moving target of knowing how do I know what's disrespectful and me just not getting my way?
Wow.
And so there are things definitely that are disrespectful. It's just so hard to look at a person and go, tell me what you got. Yeah, you should be getting out without knowing really what's going on. That's so hard.
Yeah,
I
I'm
would
glad
I
you
would
brought up.
suggest starting with a Christian counselor
Yeah.
herself and talking through some things with a counselor herself. And she might
I
could
think
give her
it's
some
great.
perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And I'm glad you used the word narcissist there. For anyone interested, look up the DSM-5. So it's the diagnostic that's used to diagnose it. Not that you're going to go and diagnose it yourself, but there's, I think, at least 8 criteria there that need to be checked if you have that personality disorder, just because that word is thrown around a lot right now.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to get more educated on it just to see if they are displaying
And
narcissistic behaviors. And then you need to actually get clinically diagnosed to be a
true.
narcissist.
And somebody brought up, and it's a good point, there's always 2 sides. And that's something I learned very, very early in marriage ministry. You listen to one person and you're like, yeah, you married a and wow, she didn't tell me or he didn't tell me these things. And so, yeah, there's always 2 sides to every story. And it's really, really hard to be an outsider judging what you should or should not do.
Definitely. All right. How's your battery life? Do we have time for some more
It
questions?
just went to about to shut off. We might have time for about 2 more questions.
Okay, this one, rapid fire. How do you feel about, I love this one. How do you feel about hashing out old situations? Is it worth it in moving forward? Oh, my biggest question is, why are we rehashing old situations? Is there, like, why are you bringing this back up? So that would be my number one question. Ask yourself that. Is this going to be a positive thing to bring this back up, or is it going to create more conflict? What hasn't been resolved from dealing with this last time? Is it patterns that are being repeated? And can I maybe deal with patterns that are being repeated with more the recent situation, or do I really have to go back to the past?
Yeah, we like to say, don't get historical, don't bring up the past. I just think if you're constantly bringing up the past, you truly haven't forgiven whatever that issue is. And if you've said you have forgiven it, then you need to move on and you need to stop bringing it up.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Here's another one as we rapid fire. What's the best way to bring up conversations about joining finances? All right, often finances, in my opinion, there's a lot of like kind of fear and scarcity around talking about money. It's not something we've been taught. It's kind of taboo to talk about money. So when you go to talk with your spouse, I'd say make it fun. Come up with your dream list of like, what do we want to do in our life? Where do we want to live? What kind of things do we want to do? Where do we want to vacation? And then you can start talking about, how are we going to make this happen? Do we need to join our finances together? So coming at it from like a fun perspective and not the, oh, we're going to talk about money. Do we have enough money? So that would be my take on that one. What about you guys?
Yeah, that's a good point. When you're going into marriage, it's as far as we're concerned, you're sharing everything equally, and you may need to sit down and talk, budgets and because you may have two very different ideas on how that money needs to get spent. And so
those are pre-marriage
yes,
conversations that you need to be having.
Yes.
But some people make it work well of separate bank accounts. For us, we've never done that. So we can't give a whole lot of advice other than everything I have is hers and everything she has is mine. And it's worked well for us for 33 years.
Aw, I love this comment. It says, I love the way Trey looks at Lee. Isn't that sweet? Okay, have you guys seen any other questions? Oh, here's one. Date night. Put kids to bed early every Friday. Okay, yeah, that wasn't a question. Have I missed any? Let me see. Have you
You've
seen
been doing good.
Oh, there's so many, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for your comment or your questions.
Can we throw something out about date night?
Yeah, go for it.
Date nights should be fun, and they shouldn't always be. We've been talking about lots of serious conversation, and when can I talk to my husband, and when can I get my wife to talk? That's really not date night stuff. Mm-hmm. And if you're bringing up serious stuff on date nights, that's probably why your spouse doesn't want to do date night with you. So it's important to, yes, find some time to have those serious conversations. Date night should be fun. Go have some fun. Go play putt-putt. Go bowling. Go out to eat. Don't talk about things that stress you out. Don't talk about problems you're having or issues you're having. Go try and have some fun like you did pre-marriage, where you're just focused on hanging out together.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, this one, I think it's just really great to bring up. It wasn't really a question, but the person said, I fought in front of our kids when they were young and now they've changed as adults. So he feels like he's maybe holding some guilt for fighting. I would also say, if you do fight in front of your children, it's not great, but you know what? Have that conversation with your kids after, because you are their number one role model besides Disney, probably, as to what a romantic relationship is like. So having those conversations, you know what, mommy and daddy didn't handle this as well as we should. We used a very strong voice, and just debriefing it for them in kid language for the level that they're at, so that they understand that what you did isn't the best way to communicate.
Well said.
For sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure we missed some questions. Somebody made a comment that said, I'm not sure you answered my question, and I'm sure we did miss some questions. It was hard to keep up with the scrolling, but I'm sure that people can write in to you or Trey and I, and we'll try to answer questions that didn't get answered.
And you know what we can do is we can do this another time. This has been great. So I know your battery's about to die, so I would like to say bye to you without losing you completely. So is there anything else you'd like to add before?
Other than we appreciate you and what you do. Yes. Thank you for going to bat and you're in the trenches for marriages and for people who are struggling. And we appreciate you because you go far beyond what we do just as simple coaches. And we appreciate that. We need people like you in this world who get down and get their fingernails dirty with people and work through the tough stuff. So thank you for what you do. We appreciate you very, very much.
Oh, you are so sweet. Thank you both. I love working with you guys, and I honestly can't wait to do this again. I think we have such fun conversations when we're together.
I think so too. You do such a great job just kind of leading this and getting it going and everything else.
Oh, I just love this is like my favorite part of like the work I do is just helping others. If I could get rid of all the business and admin stuff, I'd ditch that and just talk to women and husbands all day long if I could. So
It is
with
good
that
stuff.
said, how can anyone who's watching this from like my group, how can they find you and ask you more questions? Where do they find you?
TreyandLea.com, and you can find us. Now we're on Instagram, and so Stronger Marriages is who we are, but TreyandLea.com is where you can find us and find out who we are, what we do,
And there's links to all of our social
there's
media.
links to social media, and we're honored, and we follow you. You do such a great job. You inspire us. You encourage us. Anybody that's been listening, find good, healthy people to follow on Instagram, because there are some marriage pages out there that are not healthy marriage pages. They're just going to feed you so much negativity that it's not going to be good for your marriage. So follow good ones like yours and so many others out there. We just follow multiple, and they bless us, and one of the best things you can do.
Yeah, it's such a great little community when you can find like-minded people that are really pro-marriage and really in it to help the individuals get to a place where they can really have that happiness in a marriage. So thank you, everyone. Oh, I was going to say, if any of your followers, you can find me on Instagram. I also have this great little guide called 3 Proven Ways to Save a Marriage. I give 3 great tips there that can get you started on this journey. So
that's good stuff. So check that out.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. You've been wonderful, and we will chat soon. How does that sound?
Sounds good.
Yes.
Blessings. Love you guys.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.